And welcome to another fantastic edition of It's a Sports Show. My name is Dolphin Paul. I got a little deja vu. I felt like we've done this show before. But anyway, we got a couple new co-hosts today because Scott Cray's on hiatus. A little scheduling conflict. He's got a life now, so we got to work the show when we can. And we have to do it early in the week so our Rhode Island viewers can see the show. All 12 of them, they love it. But to my left is Jay Pyrus, who did the show a while back. Welcome back, Jay.
Thanks for having me back.
He's kind of like an alternate now. And a blast from the past, John, the Eagle fan Turner. Welcome, John.
Glad to be back again, Paul.
So we have John, the Eagle fan, Jay, the 49er fan, Paul, the Dolphin fan, and we're all Red Sox fans, and we'll get to some Red Sox news probably towards the end of the show. We'll talk a little NFL first. But
oh, don't worry, I'm still a Patriots fan.
You're still a Patriots fan?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you're one of those. You're one of those. Yeah, I know you NFC guys. I like my team, but
well, you see, I got the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
I mean, a couple years back when they were both in the Super Bowl together, we won't
I got
see
two words for you:
year,
fair and weather. That's the best of both worlds. Well, again, like I said, we got a little bit of deja vu, but I guess we'll start off with the NFL. I guess we'll go right to the big game of the weekend before we talk some peripheral stuff. Impressions from the Colts-Patriots game, which turned out to be a pretty good game. I thought it would be because I think a lot of Patriot fans, rightfully so, got caught in a euphoria because the Patriots been dominating every game. And, the Colts had won 10, 11, 12 in a row, whatever it was. And 12 in a row. They were defending champs. And, it was in Indianapolis. So I thought it was going to be a good football game, and it turned out to be pretty good.
It was a very good football game. The only problem with it was that I saw from a spectator standpoint, two mentally bad penalties thrown against Patriots. I don't have a problem with penalties if they're fair, but they had two long penalties thrown against the Patriots for pass interference. The second one, I don't even know what the referee was looking at. It was impossible to see anything of any contact, but it set up for two field goal attempts. Thankfully, they couldn't get into the end zone because the defense was so good, but two field goal attempts for the Colts. And a game should not be controlled, or the end result should not be decided by the umpires or the referees, and this one almost was.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm the last one to defend the Patriots, but the call, the one on Ellis Hobbs in particular, Reggie Wayne tackled Ellis Hobbs. If anything, it's an offensive pass interference, and they called it on Ellis Hobbs, and like you said, the defense stepped up and held him to a field goal anyway, but that was a particularly bad call, and it was a bad day for the officials all around.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. The Patriots have been a beneficiary of many good calls, starting with the tuck rule.
The tuck rule.
Well, hey,
Hey, Turner, come on,
that was a forward pass. That was a forward pass. We all saw it on replay.
The Patriots have been the beneficiary of many good ones.
Indeed.
I understand. That brings us to something else before we get back to the game. I've been kind of thinking about this, and it's kind of been brought out that about this pass interference, and I kind of agree. I think they should limit that play to 15 yards, unless the referee can determine it's a flagrant foul, i.e. a guy running by himself and somebody just jumps on his legs and tackle him, then it could be a spot foul. And it's not just for the Patriots, it's for every NFL team. You've got a team pinned deep, for instance, you throw a 55-yard pass. Sometimes it's clear interference. Sometimes, like you said, Patriots or non-Patriots call, it's questionable. Essentially, you're giving a team 55 yards of field position, which I think is a little bit unfair. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Well,
I actually disagree, because then it opens up to the situation we're in now. Pass interference essentially is a judgment call. I mean, now you're going to be determining whether it was flagrant or not. And like you said, somebody's beat downfield, they just jump at somebody's legs, tackle somebody's legs, take the 15 yards.
Well, it'd have to be like in basketball.
Right, a flagrant foul.
It'd have to be pretty flagrant if they even do that. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I just think it'd be a slippery slope. You then leave it up to the officials to decide what was a flagrant and pass interference, what wasn't, and you're going to get just as many bad calls. That's the way I look at it with the 15-yard rule. I know college does it, and they don't seem to have a problem with it, but in the NFL, I don't know if it would work.
Well, my take on this is quite simple. I think we should go to a 15-yard, flat out, no matter what, flagrant or not. How many times do teams fall behind, and their hope is they know that the receiver may or may not have a chance of catching it, but if he's got two guys on him, they're hoping. They are just praying that one of those guys trips, bumps their guy, accidentally grabs him, whatever, and the receiver doesn't have to catch the ball anymore, and now they're down on the 2-yard line, the 1-yard line, and then it's like field goal
I can see the other side, the argument, like he says. I mean, if you know you're trailing a receiver, and that the other team's on a 30-yard line, and he's probably. It doesn't even have to be flair. If you know you're streaking down to close to the 20-yard line.
Right. Do you let him catch the 40-yard bomb?
Hey, he's not catching this, no matter what.
Right.
So it is a trickery slope, but I think it'd be better. I would still like to see the 15-yard rule. So we get 2 yeses and 1 no.
1 no.
But I think that's going to come up because I think it's a big disadvantage to a lot of teams. And sometimes, like you said, it's questionable. Like the Patriots one, you give the team a ball on the 1-yard line. It's like, here you go. Here's
6 points.
60 yards of field position.
Yep.
The ball's on the 1-yard line. So I think they need to at least look at that.
But at the same time, then you'd be setting up, like we talked about, what is a flagrant foul, what isn't. We'd get just as many bad calls because you can look at one.
They might not do a flagrant foul. And
you might look at one and say, wow, really? He tackled the guy. I might look at it and say, well, it was incidental contact or whatever. So then you open it up to the officials, still have to make a judgment call on whether it's 15 yards or a spot foul. And
well, it'll be interesting. I think that's something that's going to come up because it's been happening a lot lately.
Yeah.
In this particular crew, Johnny, you mentioned the bad. They were kind of notorious coming into the game.
For bad calls.
A lot of teams scout officials, and they were one. They mentioned it. As a matter of fact, what's his name there? Charlie Casserly from the Redskins said in pregame that these guys call offensive pass interference more than not, and it actually came to fruition. So
they did call it on Moss.
They kind of knew what was going to happen, and a lot of teams scout that. They'll know, hey, listen, these guys call it. Let's try to beat on them and see if we can get one.
Well, that call against Randy Moss, I mean, come on. His back was even to the defender. He was going up. There was even the play going down the field. He was nowhere near, and I'm not taking anything away from Randy Moss. I'm not going to add anything to him. I think he's done a great job. However, I have noticed once or twice in the end zone where he's liable to just nudge a guy just so he goes
Moss.
football.
Committing the penalty?
But,
come on.
That play, he definitely...
Patriots cheating?
He definitely was
we can't
in
have
the
that.
right... There was no way that ever should have been called.
Let's get to the game itself. A couple observations. I thought this Indianapolis Colts defense is a little better than I thought. I didn't think it was bad.
They were just amazing.
No, I think it surprised a lot of people. Number one, they were tackling. They were gang tackling. And they're very fast. And I think they had a pretty good game plan taking the deep stuff away. The Patriots kept chipping away at the inside stuff. So, I think the Indianapolis Colts definitely, obviously, are for real. And I thought the Patriots won this game early because the Colts had some red zone opportunities early. The game could have been maybe 14-3, 17-3 Colts, in the first quarter. So they got down to, inside the red zone, and the Patriots held them to field goals, which I think that kind of set the tone for the game. And they came on at the end there and adjusted well in the second half because Joseph Adai had a huge game.
Huge game.
Oh, Joseph Adai had a great game.
He was excellent. I think that's what's scary for the rest of the NFL, Paul. You touched on it. The defense played them very well. They got to Brady, which no other team has been able to do so far this season. They managed to force Brady to throw a couple interceptions. They got the Patriots to turn the ball over, got the Patriots out of their game a little bit, and the Patriots still won the game. That's scary for the rest of the league. If they get by Pittsburgh, I don't see anybody stopping them.
Well, what impressed me was the speed of the defense.
Absolutely.
I mean, the speed of the Colts defense was just phenomenal. I couldn't believe how many times they were in the backfield, how many times they were covering people, and it forced the whole issue of the game. I wish that our defense, which they finally did pick up in the second half, was a little bit faster to force Manning into situations because I know Manning doesn't work very well under pressure, and they finally were starting to get to him in the second half. And, of course, when that started to happen, and we saw the last 8 minutes of the game, which was very beneficial for any Patriots fan.
Listen to you, our defense. I'm not used to this. Our defense. No, but it's almost last year was a tale of two halves in the AFC Championship. But the result was kind of the same. One team was kind of ahead. Last year was the Patriots, of course, dominating the first half, and the Colts the second half just taking over the game. This year, the Colts might have outplayed them a little bit. They had a 20-10 lead with 9 minutes to go. The Patriots kind of snuck in there, made some big plays, and got the turnover at the end. And all of a sudden, I think they kind of left the Colts a little bit stunned. Hey, what happened? We were just leading, and now here we are. We lost the game. So
first time that they've ever lost a game with 10 or more, or 8 or more points, I think, is with 10 minutes left to go in the game. First time that this team has done that. So we saw a lot of firsts out there, and the Patriots did a great job. And I'm going to get on a bandwagon here. Everybody's been busting on Mr. Belichick, and I'm going to call him Mr. because he's a good man. I don't know him personally, so I don't think I should call him Bill. But
okay, Father Turner.
But here is a guy who's been coaching his team all 60 minutes. We play all 60 minutes. We don't play 45. We don't play 55.
We're heading down a dangerous
We
road
play
there, Mr.
all
Turner.
60 minutes. And guess what? The game depended on all 60 minutes this time. And it makes a big difference because people were saying before, well, pull those guys out in the third quarter. Pull them out early in the fourth quarter. Well, if you do, when you get into games like this where they have to have endurance and you're pulling them out and they've only had 3 quarters or 3.5 quarters of endurance, they're not going to be any good come the last 5 or 10 minutes. Well, guess what? He keeps them in all 60 minutes, and this is the result. Because if he hadn't kept those guys playing the entire time, they would not have been prepared for a team like this. And I think that he's done a great job with
that's
that.
a different way to look at it. I thought you were going down a different road about them running up the score, which I thought they had been doing. But you make somewhat of a legitimate point that they hadn't. They haven't really been tested at all. So this was the first time. For Tom Brady, he's been through this his whole career. But this was the first time this year where they had to battle it out for 60 minutes, and obviously the game wasn't over until a minute to go. So. That's a good point. I thought you were going down a little bit of a.
No, we're not going the other slippery slope.
Not going down to the running up the score.
No, because I don't think he's ever run up the score. But
the Patriots went in there. They still won, like Jay said.
No.
They faced a little adversity, still won. They're 9-0. He could be right. Judging by the Baltimore Ravens last night, as we taped the show on Tuesday, that offense is putrid.
Oh, that's terrible.
Putrid. Got killed by the Steelers, who we'll get to quick. We'll go around the NFL real quick. But, really, the Steelers look to be, if the Patriots want to play this thing out, we know they're going to have something locked up in the 12th, 13th, 14th week. But if they want to play this thing out and go the big 16-0, which, of course, I'm rooting against, the Steelers look to be the biggest opponents who are quietly under the radar. That's an impressive football team, I think.
I like the Steelers a lot. They got fast receivers with Santonio Holmes and Nate Washington as their third receiver. Cedric Wilson also is thrown into the mix. Obviously, Hines Ward is a great receiver in his own right. Willie Parker. They've got sure-handed tight ends. Ben Roethlisberger is developing into an upper-level quarterback, right up there, a few notches below Brady and Peyton, but he's still up there in the upper notches of the NFL. I think if any team can give them a fight down the stretch, it's Pittsburgh. Other than that, like you said, Baltimore's terrible. I forget who else they have on the schedule. They still have Cincinnati left.
No, they got the Eagles. John Turner's
They do have the Eagles. That's right.
I think we can chalk that up for a win.
They got Miami.
They got Miami. They've got Buffalo. They've got the Jets, which may be the biggest blowout in NFL history.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Jay. Yeah. Buffalo, that game was changed from an afternoon game to a primetime game.
Yeah, it's 8:15.
After the Patriots bye. I'll tell you what, Buffalo, they play Miami this week, but Buffalo won 3 in a row. They got a pretty solid team. They're certainly not in Patriots category, but, how do you look at that game? It's in Buffalo. It's a night game now. Any chance there for Buffalo?
Well, there's always a chance, and you got to say this. And the problem that I have is when we play Buffalo and when we play Miami, those two teams, it's a
division game.
It's a division game, and they always get up for the Patriots.
Absolutely.
And that could be an easy slip.
It's on the road. It's on the road. They got that game. They also have the Giants, the last game of the year. Again, depending on the Giants, most likely will have something on the line. Patriots probably not, except if they're 15-0.
Right.
So that's kind of a slippery slope there. You being the big Patriots supporter now, John, what do you think the Patriots should do? I'm going to be on you the whole show, you know that, right?
That's all right. I don't care.
What do you think the Patriots should do? Let's say they're 14 or 15-0. How do you think they should play this thing out?
I believe they're going to play the same way they've been playing all season. You start all your starters, you play them all 60 minutes. Come heck or high water, you have the final score at the end of the game. If you're up by 3 or 4 touchdowns, maybe the last series you put in your reserve quarterback, your reserve running backs. And even so, those gentlemen are starting to look very good. So you still play your starters. You still play all 60 minutes. I don't think that Bill Belichick is going to change from that mental mode.
There's also the other thing. He might not change. It seems like he's got a hair across the where, and he looks like he wants to win every game.
Right.
Is that something that you think? If he gets to 12 or 13-0, he's like, I'm going to show all these people. And we'll get to the cheating in a second, but everybody's saying this is motivation. I'll show you. You said this about me. You said that about me. I'll show you. I'll run up the score. I'll score this on you. We're gonna go 16-0 and show everybody. You guys think that's definite motivation? And Jay, I'll say this. Jay, we talked about this before the first game of the year, and we both talked about this, privately, and said that this could serve as big motivation. And lo and behold,
And I think NFL teams can spew all the cliches that they want about the playoffs being all that matters and the championship is all that matters and the 16-0 doesn't matter. It matters to these guys. I mean, that would cement their names in history, especially if they go on and win the remainder of their games into the postseason.
Some people say go 16-0. No, that's not enough.
Right, of course, absolutely.
If you lose a playoff game.
Right, but to say the 16-0 doesn't matter to them, I think it does. And if it didn't matter, then the 72 Dolphins wouldn't get together every year when the last team, when the last undefeated team loses and drink their champagne and smoke their cigars. So if it didn't really matter.
Paul doesn't know anything about that.
No, he doesn't.
Speaking
know
of the Dolphins, my grandfather, my uncle, Don Schiller today made a very controversial statement. We spoke about this before the show.
Yes.
I know how you feel. He basically said, because of they got caught, cheating with the video gate, that they might, they maybe should be an asterisk next to their name if they go undefeated. Now, of course, Don Shule's probably trying to protect his legacy as much as he can. I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Of course, Patriot fans today, a la Sports Radio, have been all over my man, Uncle Don. How do you guys, just soliciting an opinion here?
Well, my opinion is quite simple. If you're going to start putting an asterisk against a team like the Patriots who do the same thing, and I do not believe they are the only team that has done, or continues to do this sort of a thing. It happens. But if you're going to put an asterisk against something like this, should they run the sweep, you're going to have to put an asterisk against every player who's used steroids. You're going to have to put an asterisk against every team who's played for somebody who's done something wrong.
You're opening up a Pandora's box.
Right,
exactly.
I mean,
I agree in that sense in terms of the asterisks. I think that's, maybe going a little too far over the line. But in the court of public opinion, at least, 10, 20 years from now, when we look back, when our kids look back or whatever, on this season, that's one of the things that's going to come up. Outside of New England, obviously a lot of people think they did cheat. And regardless of whether or not there are other teams doing it, and I agree with you, there probably are. As a matter of fact, I'm sure of it, that there are other teams doing it. But the Patriots are the only ones that got caught. So to this point, they're the only ones that have been fined for it. They're the only ones that have lost a draft pick for it. And until somebody else does it.
I think a lot of people are saying that, wait a minute, they got caught the first game of the first half, so it's not affecting the rest of the season. Which could be true, but my, again, playing devil's advocate, and I love to do this with Patriot fans, I mean, it's like somebody getting caught, cheating at golf or robbing a store, or someone who has an addiction to alcohol. There's always a suspicion.
Right.
I mean, you obviously think this is...
Well, look at it this way. Since that time, they have not been doing this, as far as we know, and I hope they're not doing it. But since that time, it hasn't changed one bit how they have played the first half, the second half, or any game there. And they have done the same thing that they've done. They've been dominant. They've continued to be dominant.
Let me say this. As much as I love this cheating thing, because basically as a Dolphin fan, that's all I got. That's all I can hold on to. And I'll fully admit that. The shame of it is the Patriots, especially, again, they won 3 Super Bowls by a total of 9 points. If you really ask me, you can't really go back. We'll never know what happened with Video Gate or anything like that. But this team, this year, is by far the best Patriot team in history.
Talent-wise, no question about it. No question about it. They're the most talented.
The shame of it is, if this thing didn't come up and he wasn't doing this, and again, we might say everybody does it, whatever, but he was warned about it. He knew about it. He was kind of arrogant about it because they warned him right before the season. They sent a memo to all the teams, and he sat a guy there from New Bedford with a camera on the opposing defensive coach, even though other teams steal signals through different methods. It shouldn't taint, but now, the New York Post has a little asterisk squad cheating. It's something that people like me, and I'll freely admit, can use. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I mean, they didn't need.
Right. No, they didn't need to do what they did to win, because they were going to win anyway.
With this, I mean, if there was no cheating, no tainting, none of these people making comments, they'd be God's gift to football. And people who dislike the Patriots, and I'll admit I'm one of them, a lot of people, of course, because the Patriots are winning, let's face it. We bring people up, then we tear them back down. They can use this, and and the Patriots are using it as motivation. But you can't blame people for saying, "Hey, you guys, you did this, you cheated, you got caught."
Well, what really bothers me, besides, with that aside, we had a team when I was growing up called the Dallas Cowboys.
You were a fan of them too, right?
No, couldn't stand them. Still can't stand them. Especially, I like them now because they got T.O. Good for them. But they were winning, and people just fell in love with Dallas. All of a sudden, Dallas was America's team. the New England Patriots started a dynasty, and they win. And outside of New England, everybody hates the Patriots. But we've got another team, and we're going to segue right into baseball with this, called the Boston Red Sox. Suddenly, we have a team that everybody loves, not just in the New England area, but
if they win a few more championships, they'll hate them too.
I think a lot of
they probably will, because it was the 86 years. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think a lot of the Red Sox appeal also is that they've got fun guys that appeal to the rest of the nation. They've got guys like David Ortiz smiling all the time. Oh, yeah. Guys like Jonathan Papelbon out there dancing in a kilt at the parade, and he's got the beer. The
Patriots had that earlier. The team introduced as a team.
Right.
They weren't the most talented team. Let's admit that. At least in the first Super Bowl. They were 13-point dogs against the Rams.
They've got a lot of guys. They were
introduced as a team, and everybody fell in love with them. But now, whether it's because they're winning or whether because Belichick's kind of become an arrogant man, Mr. Belichick, Mr. Belichick.
He's not arrogant. It's just the way that he is. I mean, when his position, all he cares about is the bottom line. What happens at the end of the day? He's a professional, consummate football coach. You're going to win or you're not going to win. And if you make a mistake, you're going to correct it. And
I question the professionalism, though, and that's where I get into, why the Red Sox, at least to the outside world, have more appeal than the Patriots do. We've seen Bill Belichick several times now blow off opposing coaches with the post-game handshake. We've seen him do stuff like that. There's obviously the cheating scandal. We go back, and this hasn't gotten a lot of play. Surprisingly, I figured it would be a much bigger story than it was. But Ted Johnson pretty much stating that the guy ruined his life by making him practice with a serious concussion. They don't have a lot of likable guys on that team. They're very dry. They give you cliches in their interviews. They're not a team that you look at them. They don't have a Chad Johnson or somebody like that is the focal point of attention, whereas the Red Sox, they have a lot of likable guys. They got Papelbon. They got Pedroia. They got David Ortiz, like I mentioned, is always smiling. They got a guy like Kurt Schilling who's never met a camera he didn't like.
Yeah, and they got Manny being Manny.
And then Manny being Manny, right. They're likable to the outside world because they have marketable guys on top of the fact that they win.
Yeah, but you see, the Patriots, they learn. And this is one of the things that really irritates me when you come to this professional sporting world. They don't give any other team anything to use against them because how many times do you see somebody open up their big mouth and say, well, put this down as a guaranteed win, or just save your popcorn for after the game.
Oh, Terrell Owens, right?
I mean, it's like, come on. I mean, these guys, that's the rule. You don't give the other teams anything they can use. You praise them in public, and you go out and you try to win the game. You fight all 60 minutes, and that's the way it's got to be played. But you get to guys like Chad Johnson. The guy's got a mouth. He's always got to say something. You got Terrell Owens, one of the guys I can't stand in professional football. He's got a mouth. Before you used to have Randy Johnson. Look, Randy Moss, I'm sorry. He comes here, and all of a sudden this is the way it's going to be. He's drinking the Kool-Aid, and you know what? He now leads the Patriots for the most touchdown receptions in a season. He now leads the NFL, the AFL for most pass receptions and the most yards receiving. He is a phenomenal person, and his personality is able to come out. I remember a few years back when he was playing with the Minnesota Vikings, and there's one of the best receivers I ever saw was Chris Carter. Chris Carter, of course, from the Eagles fame. All he ever does is catch touchdowns, and he saw the potential in Mr. Moss, and he tried to bring him along and get him out of that mindset of trash talking. It didn't,
Is everybody in the Patriot to you a mister?
Until I meet him personally and get to shake their hand, they call me John, I call him whatever, yeah, absolutely.
And you also got
you are drinking the Kool-Aid too, Mr. Turner.
Rodney Harrison with the HGH accusations.
Cheaters,
and obviously
basically the cheaters. That's all I can.
Sports Illustrated, what is it, 3 years in a row he's been named dirtiest player in the league?
I mean, this is going to be obviously a developing story especially with the undefeated, and see how these two teams meet and how this whole thing plays out. But I mean, I think it's safe to say, I think we'd all agree, just to cap off football, that it's basically New England. I mean, you got the Colts, maybe the Steelers. I mean, other than that, you have
those are your three top.
I'd put the Steelers in there also.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
San Diego kind of took a step back. The Titans are winning in spite of themselves with their bad offense. So, I mean, even in the NFC, could the Cowboys pop one of these teams in the Super Bowl? I doubt it. Giants. I mean, we just don't know. I'll say one thing about Belichick. I've heard a lot of radio interviews with him. He's dry as a kite. However, and I don't like the man. I don't like patience. But I love to hear him talk specifics. He talks specifics like no other coach.
Oh, he's brilliant. No question about that. He is brilliant.
When he talks about plays and what they're doing and who we're bringing in and the 4-3-3-4, just give a quick story. A friend of mine got invited in the media. No.
That's, what, 13 men on the field? I'm sorry, 14 men.
No, 3-4-4-3 defense.
4-4-3. Go ahead.
I don't know what they play in Philadelphia, but anyway, a friend of mine went to a media thing, and Belichick actually took the whole media and diagrammed the film. He said it was one of the most fascinating things he's ever heard. So
that's the shame of this whole thing.
When it comes to nuts and bolts football, Belichick pretty impressive.
That's the shame of this whole thing. He should go down, and he probably still will go down as the greatest head coach in NFL history. He's an unbelievably brilliant football mind, but his attitude and
he's the best cheater I know. He's #1 cheater in the history of football. There's no doubt about it. Asterisk. I got an asterisk next to the page. All right, let's move on to the Red Sox. We'll get some viewers back because we're all Red Sox fans.
World champion Red Sox. You
World
preface
champion
that.
Red
World
Sox.
champion
2 championships in 4 years. We only got about 5 minutes, but a couple of developments as we tape the show today on Tuesday. Kurt Schilling re-signs with the Boston Red Sox.
Absolutely.
Seems like a good contract for both teams. I mean,
Great
you guys
deal.
like that? You're
Absolutely.
excited about that?
Well, I used to be a Phillies fan. I told you before they
That
got
doesn't surprise us.
But when they got rid of Schilling, I quit and I became a Red Sox fan because I live in the area and I believe you support the local team no matter where you are. And when they took him on in 2004, I was so happy, and to see him pitch and pitch and pitch, and now realizing he's going to be a Hall of Famer. When he goes into that Hall of Fame, he can now wear and will go in, I am very confident, with a Boston Red Sox uniform.
And I've always been a huge Kurt Schilling fan. To me, he is refreshing. He doesn't come out and spit cliches. He tells you exactly what he's thinking. He gives you exactly what's on his mind. The fact that he took a $5 million
And he has
pay
a blog.
cut. And he has a
He's got
blog.
a blog,
And
yes.
if you ever read that blog, the stuff he gets into is unbelievable. How much he lets the fans into his personal life, into his professional life. I mean, to me, he's a breath of fresh air. On top of the fact that he took a $5 million pay cut to be here. He didn't even attempt to get out there.
I don't know if I'd go that far because the incentives.
Right, the
incentives are there.
Right, the incentives are there.
But I give the Sox credit because I'm like you. When I first heard $8 million, I said, Schilling doesn't see. I mean, I know he likes it here, but I'm like $8 million. The guy made 13. You'd think he could get 10 out of market, but
how much money do you need to make?
No, I agree.
And that's the point.
I
Kurt could have gone out.
And that's why I think it's a good deal for both sides.
This is a terrible free agent class in terms of pitchers go. Carlos Silva is really the only other named pitcher out there, if you want to call Carlos Silva a named pitcher.
Pettit's out there now.
Well, actually, he said he was either the Yankees or retirement. So if we take him at his word,
$16 million too. Yeah. Would he turn that down if he wanted to go to another team?
Right. If we take him at his word, he's done.
Well, yeah, but I'm sorry, but I don't see that happening. Look how many times Roger, what's his name, is retired.
Yeah,
don't get
Paul going on Roger Clemens.
Don't get me going on Roger Clemens. I think that's the most ridiculous thing going. But I also think it's a good move, money-wise and everything. At worst, this guy's a big postseason pitcher.
Right.
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even care what he does through the years, as long as the Red Sox get in. And there's some names out there, maybe like Santana, they've been talking about.
Right, trade market.
They want a lot of the Red Sox young pitching. At this point, do you stay with the staff that they have, or do you make another big move, knowing you're probably going to give up a Buck Holtz and probably Masterson and probably a Coco Crisp?
I tell you, I like this.
You got Coco replaced. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
I like this rotation a lot. You've got Beckett, your clear-cut ace, no question about it. Matsuzaka won 15 games and had an ERA around 4.4, if I'm not mistaken, in his rookie season. We saw what Josh Beckett did in his first year in the American League, and that's coming from the National League. This guy's coming from Japan. All the adjustments, travel adjustments, obviously a much better league. And he still had a fairly good ERA and 15 wins. We got to expect better from him next year. You would imagine he'd be better. Lester, Buchholz, Schilling, Wakefield, Tavares there as a backup. That's a great
Matt
rotation.
Clement coming back. I mean, they've got so many guys. And would I trade any of the future away? These young guys look too good.
Right.
Too good to trade away.
Well, they certainly have a good future, and congratulations to Kevin Youkilis, who won a Gold Glove today. And I've said it for the 20th time. I was wrong on him. I thought he'd never be more than a utility infielder. But this guy seems to be a solid player.
Yeah, look at next year. Their starting lineup. You got the young guy from center field, Jacoby Ellsbury. Then you got your second baseman. You got Manny, and then you got
Alex Rodriguez.
No,
I'm on that bandwagon.
All right,
I am driving the A-Rod bandwagon.
We're gonna go.
We gotta go for myself, Jay Paris, John Turner, Jenny, and Cody. Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk soon.